Welcome back to Mythic Sky Storytime. I'm Dr. Laura Tad, psychological and spiritually oriented astrologer. I've decided in this new year to launch a new series of shows that I'm calling Cosmic Costumes. In each of these episodes, each of these shows, I'll be discussing a different zodiacal sign, going through them in order from Aries to Pisces. And in this episode, this inaugural show, we'll be looking at the sign of Aries. I've decided to call it Cosmic Costumes because I often think of the sign itself being the costume that a given planet that is traveling through that sign is wearing. It's sort of how it gets altered. What is the role that it's taking on that is in addition to whatever that planet may naturally be associated with. While I won't really be discussing planets too much on these episodes, we'll talk about it a little as each planet is related to a given sign. But the focus of these shows of Cosmic Costumes is really going to be helping you to understand each individual sign, different ways that it can be expressed and you can connect with it. And each episode will then end with a guided meditation for you to explore your own relationship with that sign. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. That's where we begin in astrology. It's the beginning of the astrological year. And Aries always launches at the spring equinox in the northern hemisphere. So it is part of that launching initiatory energy just by thinking about it in the context of spring. And the imagery, the iconography that we associate with Aries is that of the ram. And part of that is, again, this link with spring, link of the wild energy too that can be Aries. And very directly, the word Aries is Latin for ram, and that's part of the etymological links. But the imagery and the energy that is associated with the ram gets very tied into what we attribute to this sign. Now, before we dive too deeply into the sign itself, I want to talk about some of the fundamental aspects of this sign and some of the qualities that are associated with it. Because in addition to there being 12 signs, every sign has an element it's associated with and what we call a mode. So to help you understand really what Aries is representative of, it's very beneficial to also understand these other components to the sign. So Aries is a fire sign. It's linked with that element of intensity that we associate with that element, the power of fire, the intensity of fire, the volatility of fire can be a component of Aries. It's very stimulating of energy. It has a energy to it that is also aggressive potentially. Fire can be aggressive. It can be combative, and we also combat fire when we're trying to fight it. It has a mind of its own in some ways. Fire is going to go where it is going to go in a very instinctual way, almost. Finding the path of least resistance is how the element of fire interacts with the natural world, and therefore there is a quality of that we find in Aries itself. So in addition to the elemental aspect of Aries, there is the mode. And in astrology, we have 3 modes. So there's the 4 elements: fire, earth, air, water. And we have the modes. And the modes are additional information as to how a given sign is expressed. And in astrology, we have cardinal, fixed, and mutable. So there's 3 modes and 4 elements. And Aries is the first of the cardinal signs. Again, it's the first sign, first fire, and first cardinal. First day of spring. Lots of firsts with Aries, which is often why little children that were born during the time of Aries often tend to be first at things. They tend to be ahead of the curve, ahead of quote unquote developmental markers in terms of speech or walking. There's this rushing energy. And that's part of that sort of need to be first. And so with the cardinal signs, though, we see a somewhat repeated theme of fire, but it's a little different because each cardinal sign, there's 4 of them, are associated with different elements. Right? So the cardinal signs are Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. And each of those signs launch seasons. And so with Aries launching spring, it is this combination. It's a cardinal fire sign, the only cardinal fire sign. And therefore, the cardinal signs, they also are sometimes even referred to as the cardinal directions. Cardinal signs have that initiatory energy because they all launch seasons. They're all about starting. And this seeking energy, this trying to get ahead, move forward energy that is amplified in Aries because of the fire quality. So it also this cardinal energy is about new beginnings, about reaching outward, this striving to get ahead that can be very intense when we find it in Aries because of that fiery energy. There's an quality to cardinal signs that are very goal-oriented, or very forward-moving, even if they don't know what the goal is at the end of the track, at the end of the line that they're going for. There's still this seeking for something. As a result of that, though, one of the vulnerabilities with this energy is of this always moving forward, of this seeking energy, of this goal action-oriented energy, can lead to overreach, being overly reactive, of rushing, because there's this sense of a goal that one is trying to go after and trying to, with that combination of fire, get there as quickly as possible. So that can lead to overextending or overreacting or unrestrained movement, which sometimes is not to our benefit. So then when we combine these energies, these themes of fire and cardinality, right, then we find ourselves in the world of Aries. And that's where we get these repeated themes, right? That Aries is this initiatory energy. It's literally the beginning of the zodiacal year. It's the beginning of spring. It's taking the leap forward. It's going forward, wanting to initiate all things, right? So that can be going forward in life, going forward in career, with family. It's wanting to take the lead, can be part of that energy. And there's an eagerness to that, wanting to get ahead, or feeling one of the challenges for Aries in that desire to be ahead is always feeling behind. And so that can lead to rushing, that can lead to pushy energy, because there's this sense of needing to catch up always, even though that is usually an illusion or delusion and not really clear about what is happening or the timing that things may take. But an out of balance Aries energy is often in that pushy, aggressive, overly assertive energy, because there's this sense of being behind and having to catch up, which is often not actually the case. Some of the other energies or archetypes that we see with Aries in that initiatory energy is that there's an independence. Aries' key phrase is I am. So there's this independence that we see with Aries, and a acting on impulse. And part of that is even thinking about things developmentally with Aries that I'll talk about in a little bit. There's this courageous energy. In that independence, it takes a lot of courage to be the one who's initiating. It takes a lot of courage to strike out on one's own. So there's a courageous energy to Aries as well. But we do see that vulnerability of being pushy or aggressive and snap judgments and anger that can show up in the realm of Aries. And in astrology, not unrelated to some of this, every sign is also associated with physiological parts of our body. And so usually what gets talked about is the Aries ruling the head. It's the ram that butts its head. That's part of the iconography of Aries, being the ram. And if you've ever seen rams, there's a lot of headbutting that they do. Aries can do that. Wherever we have Aries, there can be that headbutting energy. That's part of that assertive energy, trying to push ahead, trying to assert one's power or push through resistance. Aries is also physiologically related to our adrenals, and that can be seen as part of our inner fire, but it also, we can see right when our adrenals are burnt out, when we go too hard, too fast, too intensely, we get depleted and our adrenals crash, our bodies crash when our adrenals are taxed. And that can be part of the side effect of an out of balance or overly intense Aries energy. And so there's a combination of needing to honor those parts of our body in a healthy way, right? So maintaining a healthy relationship with the body to not tax the adrenals. People who have a lot of Aries in their chart may be more vulnerable to headaches, head injuries, because of that natural Aries relationship with the head. And so being more mindful of how you take care of your head if you have a lot of Aries in your chart. It doesn't mean it's a given, but that has been a trend that is observed. So in astrology, as I talked a little bit about, every planet is associated with a sign. Although throughout these episodes, I'm really going to be focusing on the signs themselves, I wanted to talk a little bit about ruling planets within each sign, because it does help us understand some of the complexity of a given sign. So with Aries, Aries is the sign most associated with the planet Mars. And we see that very directly in that sense of Mars being the god of war and assertion, right? That assertive energy that we attribute to Mars is very much in line with Aries. And his Greek counterpart, Ares, A-R-E-S, was also the god of war. And so even linguistically, we can start to see some overlap, particularly with these two. So one of the things that's really interesting to unpack when looking at astrology and understanding its impact and role on our society is how much astrological language has been interwoven into our language, even if we're not aware of it. So one of the very direct ways we see that is all the days of the week are associated with planets. And it's not just simply that our ancestors, the ancients, decided that certain days of the week were related to planet. Each day of the week is attributed or is named after a given planet. It gets a little tricky with English because English pulls from multiple pantheons, and English as a language has a combination of linguistic roots. It's much more direct in Spanish. Martes is Tuesday in Espanol, but we still attribute Tuesday to Mars in English. And the tie with that, the thread with that is that it is linguistically related to Thri's day, Thri being the Nordic god or patron of warriors, right? So we see the same god, the Nordic god and patron of warriors, Thrice, being associated with Tuesdays, and then very directly we have Martes in Espanol. So we see these interwoven pieces of Mars in our language and this relationship with Aries that it is tied to. Linguistically, again, Mars being Aries in the Greek. So Mars as an archetype, very similar to Aries. We have keywords that are often associated with Mars is the warrior, it's the quester, the hero. Mars is, again, very action-oriented. Even its glyph, its symbol, the male symbol that it's often used for is the circle with an arrow, right? That's very directionally oriented. Even just the imagery of that, we think of the arrow going a direction. It's pointing somewhere. Again, that's sort of that questing energy, that going forward energy, that initiatory energy is indicative even just in the symbol of Mars, of that male circle with the arrow imagery. Mars takes the lead. He's the conqueror in myth. Mars is also very interwoven with desire. And part of that being that action-oriented, that goal-oriented. What are we going after? What are we questing after? In some of the myths, he's associated with being a hero or representative of heroes, the god that warriors or those who were seeking to be heroes would call upon for help. And so then we look at Mars in relation to Aries and combining these two concepts, overlapping that then with human development, psychological development, we start to see some threads in how we each, regardless of the sign we were born into, or where the sun was when we were born, seeing where in our own lives this Aries initiatory energy shows up. Now, in a very direct way, Aries being the first sign is often associated with childlike behavior because it's seen as very instinctual. It's so early. It's acting on instinct rather than logic. It's acting on reaction rather than forethought. And so there's a piece of that archetype that is this just leap before you look sort of energy. And so that can be what we attribute to sort of young children. I want what I want, and I want it now, right? That's sort of just going for something regardless of the outcome or without applying peripheral vision. Aries can also have struggles with power or feeling powerless, right? Little children often get really angry when they don't feel like they're in control. So there's that element of Aries that's very driven, but can also then struggle to find appropriate applications or expressions of power. And so as a result, we've often attributed Aries to being very archetypally male, right? This very forward, aggressive energy can be very Aries-like. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. Being driven, being assertive has its place. It's just when it becomes so all-encompassing that it loses peripheral vision or has just horse blinders on and is not checking out how that assertion, how that questing energy is impacting those around us, that we can run into problems. So as this is Mythic Sky Storytime, I thought I would also tell you a story, because I find throwing all these adjectives out and concepts out can be a lot to integrate and digest and sort of make sense of, because it can feel very abstract. And stories really help bring the abstract into clarity. So as we explore what the sign of Aries means, I thought I would tell you the story of Aries, A-R-E-S, the Greek god of war, or one of his stories. There's lots of stories, but we'll look at a few here. Aries was the son of Zeus and Hera, and he rarely got along with his equally strong-willed parents, right? His father was the king of the gods, was the head of the Greek pantheon, and his mother was Zeus's female counterpart. So Aries was impulsive and aggressive, partly to get his parents' attention and try to meet their intense power. And as a result of his behavior, Hera, his mother, frequently rejected him, and she was annoyed by his impulsive and seemingly immature behavior. And when it came to his father, to Zeus, they often fought over even the smallest of things. Part of that was Aries liking to sort of just pick at things and see how he could get his father to react, but they were often in conflict. And some of their most heated arguments were around the fact that Aries always felt the need to intervene in human affairs and battles on Earth. And while Zeus was a prolific meddler, there's countless stories of him intervening or engaging in human affairs and to his own entertainment often. He preferred to do so only when he and the other gods would benefit from his interference. He was doing it for his benefit mostly, and he'd interfere or get involved in human affairs when he or others got something out of it. But with Aries, he was driven by a passion to intervene that his father just didn't possess. He would intervene for the sake of intervening. That was part of that leaping before we look energy that we associate now with the sign of Aries. And a raw bundle of emotion, Aries would often step in or more accurately jump in whenever he thought there was something going on that someone needed his help, particularly when there were battles or wars going on between humans. He always felt the desire or need to intervene and engage in some way. But it was interesting in that way because he never really had allegiances to one side or the other. Rather, he was driven to just take action, act on instinct, make split-second decisions, see somebody being attacked and want to intervene. But then he could flip on a dime and support or engage with the opposite side with little forethought as to the implications of him switching sides or changing allegiances. Aries entered into his decision-making with little forethought or strategy or morality. So much so that it often didn't seem that for him it even mattered which side he fought on as long as he got to join in on the fight. He just wanted to be part of the action, but didn't really care why. Again, that sort of instinctual energy. And so there's a lot of stories of how he intervenes in different situations and different battles in that sort of instinct and impulsive energy and meddling in human affairs in that way. But again, not to get something out of it in the way that Zeus did, who was doing it for his own pleasure or benefit, or sometimes to benefit other gods, but typically to benefit himself. So in addition to Aries being tied to war and action in this drive energy that we see in lots of stories, he's often also, as Aries or as Mars, associated with Aphrodite or Venus in the Roman pantheon. And so Aries always was meddling, Aries was always meddling, but as he or Mars was always meddling, and as he grew from a meddling young boy to a meddling young man, he also discovered other interests, other passions. And one of those very acutely was Aphrodite, or Venus in the Roman pantheon. Venus, or Aphrodite, she's the goddess of love. And it's here that we start to see the interweaving of love and war, and the fact that we still talk about those parallels, right? It's all fair in love and war. And this thread that goes back to the ancients. And part of how we see this in astrology too is that Aries and the sign of Libra are opposing signs in the zodiac. They occur 6 months apart. And so the archetypal energy of these two signs are also associated with these two gods, with these two planets that have these opposing and yet magnetic attraction to each other. And Libra as a sign is the sign associated with Venus. And so there's many stories about how Mars and Venus or Eris and Aphrodite were in each other's lives. Now, one of the things that's fascinating is that at least contemporarily, we often think of them as a couple and being partners. And while on one level that's true because Eris and Venus had a long ongoing love affair and they had at least 4 children together, they were never married. Right, so Mars is very drawn to Aphrodite. Eris is very drawn to Aphrodite, Mars, Venus. They are drawn to each other. But Aphrodite is married to Hephaestus, who is the god of metalwork and fire, and is not ever married to Mars, despite the fact that they have a long ongoing love affair and multiple children together. And so there is this energy, we can see some of that, even that compulsion of Aries, Mars, I want what I want, regardless of the outcome, regardless of who it hurts in the process, regardless of the ramifications of the actions that I take. And so we see some of that here in his engagement with Venus, even though she was a co-conspirator in their affair. There is still some of that impulsive energy that we see in their relationship. And we see that to some extent even in who their children are. So they had at least 4 children. It varies depending on which myths you read, but at least 4 children that show up in multiple myths historically. Deimos, who's the god of fear. Eros, or Cupid, the god of love in a very different way than Venus is or Aphrodite is. Harmonia, the goddess of harmony. And Phobios, phobia, right, god of panic. And so here we even see this dichotomy. We have love and harmony and fear and panic as their children. And so this interweaving of energy of wanting to take action, but then maybe hesitant to take action. That can be some of that fear and phobia energy that can be part of Aries, of being afraid to take action, being afraid to be assertive. That can be part of that Aries energy. And we see that in the myth, just in how that was their children. And so as we look at their relationship, in addition to their children, they continue their love affair despite the fact there's stories of them being caught by Aphrodite's husband, by Hephaestus, who tries to shame them for their indiscretion, for their acting on instinct and passion. It's a intermittent love affair, though. It's not something where they see each other every day. They circle back to each other and reconnect. And so they go off and do their own things and they come back, and they go off and do their own things and they come back, but always drawn to each other. And so this is part of where we see that passion part of Mars. Mars also going after what he wants, being passionate about what he goes after. And Aries having that drive of going after something with passion, even if it's not necessarily with forethought, there's still passion behind it. It's this combination of that drive being interwoven with passion and drive of all kinds, right? It's not just sexual desire, but being driven to go after something with a passion, with a intensity that not a lot of the other signs possess. Right, so that's a little introduction into Aries. There's a lot more I could say, but I want to switch gears here and give you a meditation to help you understand this sign in your own way. So you want to make sure that you find a comfortable place to sit or lie down. I do recommend that you find a place where you can sit and sit up straight. So if you need back support, it's good to find that. But I think particularly with Aries, with the fire signs, it's beneficial to be sitting upright when you go into meditation. I recommend before we get started with the meditation that you pause this show so you can find where you want to sit for the duration of the meditation. So with your eyes closed, we're going to start with some belly breathing, just to get you present, bring you in your body. It's been a lot of heady things over the last half an hour with the show. And belly breaths are just a way of doing very deep breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. And I will guide you through it we're going to inhale for the count of 4, hold at the top for a few seconds, and then exhale completely. And as you're breathing in, you want to breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth, and really filling your whole body with oxygen, even your belly, right? Imagine your belly is like a balloon that you are filling as you inhale. Okay. Take a deep breath in. 1, 2, 3, 4. And hold. Exhale completely. 1, 2, 3, 4. And pause. And again, inhale deeply. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pause. Exhale completely. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pause. Inhale completely. 1, 2, 3, 4. And pause. Exhale completely. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pause. One last time. Inhale deeply. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pause. Exhaling completely. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now bringing your breath back to a normal rhythm. You still want to be breathing deeply, but do it in your own pace, in your own count. And before we go into this guided imagery meditation, we're going to start by just connecting with the chakras, the energy centers that run up the body, to help you to be in a centered place, a energetically contained and safe space as you do this exploration through meditation into what Aries might mean to you. And so on your next inhale, bring your attention to the base chakra or the root chakra. This is this energy center found at the base of your spine. It's what grounds you to the earth, connects you to Mother Earth, to Pachamama. It is literally the root of your spine, the base of your spine. It is your tether to the chi, to the energy of Mother Earth. It is what grounds you metaphorically and literally in this lifetime. And on your next inhale, bring your attention up to the sacral chakra, second chakra. And this is a point that's just sort of right between, in women, right between the ovaries, and a similar location with men, right? Sort of just below the belly button a little bit, right where your sort of hands would fall. If you put your hands below your belly button, that is sacral chakra. And this is a center of your engagement with the world. It has to do with our directive and receptive energy, how we take action or don't take action. It is linked to our passion with the world, as it's so in alignment with the reproductive organs. And so it is our connection to passion of being alive and with others and with the things that we find most drawn to or repulsed by. It's a powerful center, as they all are. And it's a center of balance and harmony of our, right, that receptive directive energy, yin yang energy. And on your next inhale, bring your attention to the solar plexus. This is the center just above the belly button, right, where we often think of as our gut reaction, our emotional response to the world. And it is here that there is a lot of power for even the word solar plexus, sun center, quite literally. It is where we radiate our self from. Our power resides here. Your inner radiance, your inner sun, your sun center. And on your next inhale, bring your attention to your heart chakra, literally at your heart. This is the center of the chakra system. It is in between the lower three and the upper three. It is your center of self, right? So sun center being the solar plexus, but heart centered, right? Being heart centered. The heart chakra is tied to our love of self and other, our ability to connect with love and accept love, accept kindness, and radiate that as well. It is also where wounding of the heart resides. And on your next inhale, bring your attention to your throat, to throat chakra. This is the center connected with how we speak and communicate or fail to do so. Our voice, what we give voice to and what we speak to resides here. And on your next inhale, bring your attention to your third eye. This is a point on your forehead, sort of between the eyebrows. This is a place of vision, a place of clarity, where you can see through the illusions of the world. It allows you to see the truth amidst the chaos and have vision for your future. And on your next inhale, bring your attention to crown chakra. This is a center, an energy point, sort of just at the very top of your head. And it is here that you connect with the divine, with God, Goddess, Spirit, Universe, Source, whatever your language is for the divine. This center that's often depicted as the halo in Christian religious art is a connection, is a tether to the divine. And representative of your own divinity. And with these centers all now awakened and scintillating, we're going to bring the energy down from the divine, this connection from the crown to source, to God, Goddess, Spirit, back through the chakra channels before we go into our guided meditation. And so on your next inhale, breathe in and feel that light from the crown moving through the chakra channels, through the third eye, clearing away any cobwebs of lack of clarity, any fogginess that may have been there. And as you continue to breathe, bring that light, that divine source of healing through the throat chakra, healing wounds around speaking your truth, around listening to what is hard to hear. And as you continue to breathe, bring that healing light into the heart chakra, healing wounds of hurt, of past pain, of grief, of things not working out the way that you had hoped, or where maybe you have pained others, and the self-judgment and shame that may be residing there as a result. And on your next inhale, bringing that energy, that healing light into solar plexus, helping to resolve issues of personal power, of standing in your strength. Maybe as you do, you feel your spine straighten. And as you continue to breathe, bring this light into sacral chakra, helping to balance this receptive directive sides of yourself, bringing them into harmony, for both need to exist. They are both equally important, although they may be required in different degrees depending on the situation and the moment. But possessing both of them equally is in your best interest. And on your next inhale, bring that energy, that light of source into your base chakra, your root chakra. Now connecting the totality of yourself from crown to root with this scintillating light. Feeling that throughout your body, radiating around you like a protective cocoon. As we go into this imagery guided meditation to explore your relationship with Aries and what you might learn. And so bringing your attention now back to the third eye, for this is the place of vision, it's your mind's eye, where it can help you to envision the imagery that may come through with this guided meditation. And so once you are there, see yourself walking through a field at dusk. You can make this field be any field you want it to. Maybe it's a wildflower meadow. Maybe it's a curated field of rolling hills. And as you walk through this field with the ever-darkening sky, you come to a campfire. that is already burning. And around this fire, beside this fire, are a few stones upon which encircle this campfire. Like seats for those who gather around it to sit upon. And as you get closer, you realize that someone's already there, tending the fire. There's someone with whom you've always looked up to. Someone who has held for you a role of a leader or a hero. Someone that perhaps you've aspired to emulate in your own life. And as you get to the fire, join them. Sit with them around this campfire and talk to your hero. Talk to this person with whom you have always looked up to. See what advice they might have for you. When it comes to you accessing your drive, how could you connect with that driven Aries-like energy that is always going forward, pushing through the inertia of resistance? What might this hero have to tell you about you accessing your own power, your own drive to push through resistance and actualize the potential within you to be a leader, to be a hero in your own right? What insights might they have? Ask any questions of clarity that you need. If it isn't making sense, ask them to explain. For they are here to help you. And as you are in dialogue with them, if you find you have issues with anger in your life, either that you yourself are reactive or that you are very challenged by other people expressing anger, see if they have insight. What insight might they have for you about how to navigate this, how to respond to moments of anger within yourself or the anger of others? What insights do they have for you to help you navigate this with greater clarity and less reaction? How do you connect with your power and your passion in a way that is healthy for you and those in your life? As you continue to dialogue with them, see if they have any recommendations of how you can reconnect with them or this energy that is here by the fire when you need to, when you find yourself faltering, either being reactionary and having that hair trigger stimulated, or if you're struggling to connect with your drive. What do they recommend would be helpful for you to reconnect with the knowing that you're having here beside the fire? And when you feel ready, you can thank them for their insight and their time today. And see if there's anything that they would like you to do to honor the fact that they have shared with you today their knowledge and their insights. What could you do in gratitude and reciprocity for their insights today? And as you turn to go, thanking them for their time, you slowly walk back through your meadow, through your field, noticing now that more time has passed than perhaps you imagined, and that now the sun is returning. Just barely you see the earliest part of dawn. The light, the sun is just peeking at the horizon. The sky is just beginning to lighten as you walk back through your field. And taking as much time as you need, slowly bring yourself back into whatever space you have been in for this journey. Moving your fingers and your toes and your body very slowly as you come back into the room. I recommend that you find a journal or something to take some notes in about what occurred for you during this meditation. And I hope you have a lovely rest of your day or evening at whatever point you happen to be listening to this episode. I look forward to you joining me on this new endeavor, this Aries endeavor of exploring each of the signs in this way in the coming weeks. Again, I am Dr. Laura Tad, and this has been Mythic Sky Storytime. Please like and subscribe to these shows wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you would like to learn more about me and my work, you can visit my website, Mythic Sky.